Hey, welcome back to Business 101, Introduction to Business. And in this third lecture of Module 12, what are we looking at today? Well, as you can see here on the screen, we're looking at who are accountants and what do they do? To familiarize ourselves with this whole function of accounting, we're going to ask, well, who are the people who do all this work? What kinds of things do they do? What kinds of qualifications do they have? What kinds of skills do they need to have in order to work and serve as accountants? So you see here from this first slide, who are accountants and what do they do? Well, let's start at the very top. The very top of the accounting department in most companies, you'll have a function known as the controller. Now, that may sound like, well, maybe that was your last boyfriend or girlfriend, but no, that's a bad joke, I'm sorry. What we're really talking about is the person who has the highest degree of financial control over the accounting department and the accounting activities. You may actually substitute sort of the mental footnote, the controller equals the chief accounting officer. And typically a controller will have certification and licensing by the state in which they serve. And that certification comes with the official title of a certified public accountant, or for short, a CPA. You may have heard of CPAs before, and that's really what the acronym refers to, a certified public accountant. Well, certified by who? Well, first of all, they have to be licensed by the state in which they live and work. So an accountant is typically licensed by the state after passing a series of very, very rigorous exams. It's not easy to pass these exams. It takes an enormous amount of study. It takes a fair degree of experience. It ain't easy. Just because you have a college degree, by the way, it doesn't mean you're automatically able to pass the exams. It's not. I know many, many folks who graduated with a bachelor's degree in accounting who did not pass all of the exams to earn the CPA certification the first time through. The exams themselves are published by the AICPA, the American Institute of Certified Public Accountants. It's standardized, it's updated on a regular basis. But if you pass the exam, then you're able to qualify to earn certification as a CPA and then can offer services to the general public under license by the state. So typically, that's who a good corporation, a good organization wants to be their chief accounting officer, someone who is fully licensed and has demonstrated they have the competency and the knowledge in order to serve as the chief accounting officer. Now, in larger companies, there are other people who work in the accounting departments. These folks aren't typically, they don't need to be certified public accountants. They may have very little training in accountancy, quite frankly. However, that means there are still valuable positions that pay a decent wage that don't require accounting certification. What are examples of some of these folks? Well, you see them there. Accounts receivable staff, accounts payable staff, bookkeepers. Let me just give you a brief rundown. What do these terms refer to? And again, you may have heard of these terms and not really known exactly what they were talking about. Well, let's see. What are accounts receivables? Accounts receivables is money coming into the organization. For instance, what happens if you needed to buy a pair of shoes from a company that makes and sells shoes online? Well, you would go to the website, you would put those shoes in the electronic shopping basket, and then when you just had to check out, you would what? You would submit your credit card or your PayPal or your Venmo or some way to submit payment, right? Well, think of it from the business's point of view. From the business's point of view, in order for them to ship you your shoes, they want to receive payment. That's accounts receivable. And they have staff employed at the company that as payment comes in for all the products and services that they sell, someone keeps track of those accounts receivables, measures them, keeps track of them in ledgers and books or keeps computer records, etc. And those are the folks who keep track of accounts receivable. Well, then that sort of makes sense then, right? It sort of defines what accounts payables are. Because quite frankly, in order to produce shoes in a factory, that means that company has to buy leather. They're buying leather from someone who sells leather, which means they got to pay them. And those cash outflows from the business are known as accounts payables to all the people like leather vendors or PG&E to keep the electricity on, or payroll to all the employees. Those are all accounts payable, and you typically have staff to take care of those as well. Finally, you have bookkeepers. Bookkeepers generally are a blanket term for anyone who keeps track of cash inflows and outflows in and out of a business. In most businesses, quite frankly, you want to separate the receivables and payables functions into two different people. Can you answer the question why that's a wise practice? Well, you should be able to, because quite frankly, if you are keeping track of both the inflows and outflows of money into a business, for some people, that can be a little tempting. It can be a little tempting when money comes in. Quite frankly, if you're not very scrupulous and not really ethical, you could probably create ways, if you're the same person doing both, to somehow a little bit of that money found its way into your personal account or as cash into your hand or other places they shouldn't go. Does this make sense? So in order to prevent that kind of temptation, what typically wise businesses will do is take the receivables and payables functions of bookkeeping and separate that into two different departments, or at least two different people, so that the same person isn't tempted. I hope that makes sense. But I did just want to give you a little bit of a flavor for who are folks who work in accounting and perform parts of accounting functions who may or may not really be fully certified licensed accountants. This is probably a good time to bring up another distinction, because in business we also have an understanding of two different functions of accounting, and you see them there. Financial accounting versus managerial accounting. In fact, right here at College of Marin, we have classes in financial accounting, and we have different separate classes in managerial accounting. You may have been wondering, well, what the heck? What's the difference between these two classes? And I give them to you right there. Financial accounting focuses on financial information that will be useful to external users. In the right-hand side of this diagram, this little picture I've given you, right? External users like lenders, investors, regulatory agencies, right? Whereas managerial accounting focuses on internal users of a company's financial information. You can see some examples there. Managers, executives, employees, folks inside the company. And so the type of information you produce for managerial accounting is significantly different than the kinds of information that you may provide in financial accounting. Now, those are conceptual distinctions between these two types of information. In practice, quite frankly, managers use both financial and managerial accounting reports, but that's a distinction that we don't really need to go too far down in this class. For those of you who will take your accounting classes here at College of Marin, you'll understand those and you'll learn more about the differences between financial and managerial when the time is appropriate. But I hope that makes sense right here at the outset so you can understand the differences in those two types of functions. Now, some other things you need to know about what certified public accountants do. Well, some certified public accountants perform audits. What's an audit? An audit is a systematic examination of a company's accounting system to determine whether its financial reports really do reliably represent its operations. In other words, the audit is performed to make sure that all the reports and the information that's being published is accurate. It's real. It's not fuzzy around the edges. And those audits will be performed according to generally accepted accounting principles, or GAAP. You can see there the description, accounting guidelines that govern the content and form of financial reports. Now, GAAP is not just a set of principles. They really are rules. Let me put it this way. If a publicly traded corporation publishes financial reports that do not adhere to these generally accepted accounting principles, somebody can go to jail. That's what we mean by generally accepted accounting principles. They really have the rule of law. CPAs will also do other things, however, besides just simply publishing financial reports and making sure they're accurate. They'll perform tax services, tax preparation and tax planning. They'll provide management advisory services, financial planning, design of information systems. And those are just two examples of the kinds of services that accountants perform for individuals as well as for businesses. And in order to perform those and many other types of services, accountants need core competencies. What is those? The combination of skills, technology, and knowledge that will be necessary for the present and for the future certified public accountant. And you can see some of these here in this table. Now, this table may be a little difficult to read on the slide. I'm not really sure. It depends on the screen you're reading on, depends on the eventual quality of this video, but this is a table that is reproduced exactly from your textbook, so you'll be able to take a look at it in the text. What kinds of emerging competencies do accountants need? You can see them here. Accountants need to do more than just simply work the numbers. They need strategic thinking and critical problem solving. Remember, I told you, numbers are stories. Numbers are stories in disguise. You need to be able to think critically to understand and get insight into what is the underlying story behind those numbers. You will need communication, interpersonal, and effective leadership skills. Now, it's an old joke, right? Accountants tend to be the folks who like numbers better than people. Not anymore. Nowadays, accountants need to also be able to communicate effectively, to be able to tell the story, right? What the story behind the numbers is. They need a dedication to meeting customer needs. They need the ability to integrate diverse information and proficiency with IT. These are all the types of skills that accountants in the future will need to master in order to have a thriving career in accounting. There are different types of accountants as well. There are private accountants. That would be, as you see, they're described as a salaried accountant hired by a business to carry out its day-to-day financial activities. There's also a management accountant, a private accountant who provides financial services to support managers in various business activities within a firm. And finally, on this slide, there is the certified management accountant, which is a professional designation awarded by the Institute of Management Accountants in recognition of management accounting qualifications. And these are all different flavors and layers of what accountants can do and the kinds of functions they serve in the real world. And then finally, in this slide deck, there is a separate category of forensic accounting. You can see there the definition, the practice of accounting for legal purposes. And one of the main aspects that is emerging in forensic accounting, you see there the Certified Fraud Examiner, a CFE. A CFE is a professional designation administered by the Association of Certified Fraud Examiners in recognition of qualifications for a specialty area within forensic accounting. What does forensic accounting do? Forensic accounting looks at the financial information of a firm as published in financial statements to see, has fraud been committed? Are they really telling the truth? Something smells funny in Denmark. What's the reason? Let's go through the numbers and see what doesn't match up. These are all the functions from a legal perspective that forensic accounting performs on the books to determine if there has been an ethical misjudgment, if there has been an ethical violation and a legal violation that may require some recourse or even prosecution. So you can see here sort of the weight and the importance and the gravity with which business requires accounting to do its job in a rigorous, accurate, and ethical fashion. That just sort of comes out just as we begin to examine really who are accountants and what do they do. I think you're starting to get, hopefully, an understanding of how serious a business and function accounting is in the real world. I hope that helps you. We'll see you in the next lecture.